Hello to my friends and family. This video I'd like to talk to you about prejudice. That's a word that I've been thinking about for a long time, since I was something like 15 years old. So prejudice, to judge something before you know the facts. So that's the idea of prejudice. It's like prejudice. So you judge something before you really know what's going on. Now that is not racism, right? Necessarily. It's a very natural thing. So, for example, squirrels, they operate by and large based on prejudice. They see you walking down the street. It's not a question of your genetics, right? Well, it is, because you're a human being. That's a genetic outcome. But, it's just that you're any human being. They don't know if you're a good one or a bad one. They judge you. They say you could be bad. So it's a type of worrying. And they run up the tree, right? That's prejudice. You could have been a good person, Maybe you were there with a nut to get to the squirrel, but it's still run right up the tree. Doesn't care to get to know the details. So that's not necessarily racism, is it? Prejudice. Think about it for yourself, please. Language is like a dance. I say something, you listen. You say something, I listen. Sort of back and forth. And it's all based on words. And then these words, you really need to think about them, please. It really helps because, and then you ever deal with like project management? People misunderstand each other. It's usually, by and large, the problems that happen. Like I'm in IT. So these words, you need to even know what do the words mean. Like people say, and even in technology or in, say, making baseball hats or whatever people are making, that they're talking about part of, let's say, the hat, but they don't really understand what that is, and they get a miscommunication. So what is racism? We talk about, that's that race idea. So you try to look at the word itself, race, and you say, okay, whoa, what would that really be? Race? Is that the skin tone or the nose, the hair? So you break it down like that, and then when you get to something like the white people, or like white power, let's say, or something like black people, the black power. You can start to break it down and say, wait a minute, this might not be correct. What black? First of all, the skin tone is like Tahitian sunset, or it's chocolate colored, or it's beige, like my skin. You say, well, it's not that. It's not exactly the skin tone. It's more like the soul food. You say, but no, the people in Nigeria, they're not eating your soul food. You know what I'm saying? So, well, then it's the history of slavery, and you say, well, not everybody was touched by slavery, thank God. And then you say, was anybody that was a slave, like the Roman slaves and that, are those also the black people? And you said, no, stop confusing us. Well, sometimes it's good to get a little confused. So back to prejudice. Judging before you know the facts, right? Let's take an example. Here I am, a child in Chicago. I see someone walking down the street, and it looks like it's going to be trouble for me. They're going to try to take my bicycle, or they're just going to literally attack me physically and this kind of thing. So I'm young, they're older, and I'm not going to win that fight. So it's like across the street, right? And that's prejudice. I don't know that they're bad. Now, going back in my memories, what would I really be doing that based on, right? Was I being a racist? Think about it, please, just like I'm doing right now in your life. Were you really being a racist? If it was Barack Obama in his clothing, with his physical demeanor, walking down the street, would you have crossed the street? If yes, then maybe the answer is yes, you're racist, because Barack Obama supposedly, had, I think one of his parents were more African, so maybe it'd be like, he's a black person if you think that. I don't. But I don't, I think that let's not get too deep into what I think. But at any rate, so there's Barack Obama. There's this person walking down the street, but I crossed the street, and I asked myself, why did you do that? Was it their skin tone? He said, no. I don't know. I go to school with people that skin tone. I do not cross the street. When I see those kids, I run over there to play with them. Then what was it about that person? Was it their nappy hair? Not exactly. Was it their cornrows? Okay, yeah, maybe some of those cornrows. Now, do you know what cornrows are? So maybe that's just Chicago, I don't know, but that's when someone with nappy hair, or not, I guess not nappy hair, any kind of hair, more hair than me, let's just say, and then they would braid it so that it's tight against their skin, like that. R. Kelly had that for a while. So in that shape like that, boom, 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 boom. Then here you see the little ends of the braids. Oh yeah, then that's like, that to me, for my culture, the cultures in my neighborhood there, that would indicate that maybe they were dangerous. Now I remember one child had that in my school that was not dangerous. Well, no, he was a little bit dangerous. Honestly, he's a little, that family was really dangerous. Actually, comes to think of it, you know what? That family, like one of these systemically disenfranchised families, the father of that family came to visit one day because their kids were always causing problems in the school. This was a mixed school, what they call racially mixed for those who believe in race. And that father came and got so angry when the teacher said that his kids were misbehaving. He took up the space heater in his hand and threw it at the teacher and cut his head. Can you believe that? That was the monkey wild Civil War situation I grew up in. To think that a parent would even think about doing that here now, where I live now here in Austria, is just not even in the cards. So why? Why is that? Say because of that systemic disenfranchisement that's been going on for 150 years. That's something like 3, 4 generations after slavery. You know, you USA citizens have that now. And they're developing that in some of these other liberal kind of countries now. The more that liberalism. I had made another video about that already. So hopefully I'll make a channel and organize these videos. But if you could find it about how liberalism can cause, and not just cause, yeah, no, actually can cause that kind of systemic disenfranchisement and then uphold it over the years by having a fear and lack of discipline and a lack of moral strength. It's so sad. Even though those liberals at home with their children have that discipline, that not the fear, and have the moral strength, give that to their children so they become enfranchised. But then those other children, they're disenfranchised because there's so much fear. And it comes out as that political correctness. They just don't touch those children that need to be touched by their teachers. They don't touch the teachers that need to be touched by the liberal business leaders of those big cities in the USA. And now of Germany and of France. They're going to run the same problem. I see the same thing brewing there. I haven't mentioned that. Man, I should do a big video about that. Okay, so prejudice, there I see that person, it's their hairstyle. That's not their race. It could be any skin tone. Believe me. It could be what they call the yellow people, those Orientals, what they call Eastern. I don't know what the right political term is for that area of the world. Believe me, it's not a race. But if for those who are the racial experts out there who think that's a race, if they had cornrows, that braid, and then had that certain, then there's the physical presence, how they're walking. You know, there's that limp that they do, those gangsters. So then if they had that limp, and then comes the baggy hoodie. Okay, so when they have that sort of a hoodie, that kind of a pullover that is baggy, that where you can hide knives and all kinds of things like that, steal things and hide it under there. So when they have that and that hairstyle and that walk, then there's probably a lot of other little things that play into that prejudice. Like then there's the way they answer for yourself. You know what I'm saying? And then say, and when you say, okay, that was the person that I was afraid of, ask yourself, was it really a race thing? Was it, I mean, literally a genetic kind of analysis in your mind going on about what they were, their bloodline heritage? Or was it something different about their culture, about their clothing, language? Man, when you hear someone talking a certain way, that also tips it off. Their size, of course, as a prejudice, as a squirrel, right? You're going to look for their size. If they're really little, if they're smaller than you, then it's really a much less, dangerous kind of situation, potentially dangerous. And so, that whole thing, man, then comes that fear. So then you have to deal with that fighting situation or try to flee the situation or, that's just horrible. But at any rate, all that is not racism. That was my point. But this is just really an invitation for introspection and to say, for you, is prejudice a race thing, or for you, or is it about culture? Like they're having all those riots now in USA. If you were to go there into Seattle, right, into there, where they call that free zone, what's the first thing you do is you start to assess these people. Is this a dangerous person or not? Obviously, it's a pretty dangerous situation because they're already trying to break off from the country, which would be something like a revolution, which is where, yeah, people die. Like Trump said, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Believe me, that is true. Whether there's racism or not, as soon as you start trying to steal something, someone might shoot you, period, in any country. So, then you see, and you look at these people and you start saying, is he a dangerous one? Man, anybody with those masks over their face looks dangerous to me. When I see that already, I'm like, why are you hiding yourself? Is that the coronavirus? Are you hiding your face? And why would you be hiding your identity, what you're trying to pull over on me? You know what I'm saying? Why can't you show yourself? You know what? That's a funny thing. I'll just quickly mention that our fear tends to be based on our own actions. So if I tried to do something bad to you, let's say in this video I tried to get your money. So I say all my ideas of prejudice, racism, but please give me some money or something. That'd be kind of like trying to fool you, because this is not about money, is it? And that'd be just like me trying to get, what we say in Chicago, trying to get over. Then, boom, in my mind, I think, okay, did I get over or not? It's the first thought, after, say, the video. And then I think, man, will they ever figure it out? Will they figure out that I tried to get over on them? And then comes the fear. They're going to figure it out one day. They're going to figure it out. They're going to come get me. They're going to come get my money that I got from them. They're going to come get it back. Then you live in fear. So my point there is that about that fear, if you're liberal with that fear, consider that if you really are good, if you have a warm heart, but then not just theoretically, but then you work on really accepting people as they are on their own terms, respecting them and caring for them, maybe you won't have that fear. So I'm getting off the subject. The subject was prejudice. The whole point I'm trying to make is it's not necessarily racism. It could be racism in the extreme case, outlying case, but let's just please try and include that word prejudice in your word of good things as well. Okay, that yeah, we can be prejudiced against people and think they're evil before we know them. Yes, that's okay. That's a natural, good kind of judgment to make. Okay, that's not necessarily racism. So that's so dangerous if you don't care for this dance. If you don't care for the meaning of these words real carefully, you could really, hinder your progress against things like racism. If you don't really think about what is it carefully, what is that race, even the race of racism, do I even believe in it? If you believe in science, the human population bottleneck, look it up on Wikipedia, there was only 10,000 people 70,000 years ago. So actually, according to science, you're all my brothers and sisters of all the skin tones, of all the nationalities, of all the geographical locations, of all the languages, of all the hairstyles, and of course the skin tones and nose shapes and things like your eyebrows or your facial hair, if you're a woman, hopefully not too much. I'm sorry. But you have your hair, whatever, right? So we're all brothers and sisters. Okay, so please enjoy your prejudice and try not to be a racist. Okay, I love you all. Peace out.